Hey, welcome everybody. We have Todd Zemek with us. And he came into my life via some friends who highly recommended him, thought he was an amazing guy. And he's qualified to talk about this next segment because he is a guy. And really, what I would love for you to hear from this gentleman is what it's like to be one. And a little bit about him. Firstly, he is a psychotherapist and a clinical psychologist. I think I've got that right, Todd. Have I? Welcome.
You got it. You got it. Really great.
Oh, good. And I'm really just going to throw it over to Todd. What is it that you would love the men, the fathers, the brothers, what would you like them to know about what it's like to be a guy and anything you'd like to share with them?
Wow. I guess I come to it through being a therapist. And so I have men come to me during all types of struggles in their life. And then seeing how they change and grow through those struggles. And so it's just fascinating to see to be honest, like the disappointment they have in themselves just for being human.
Wow. Yeah.
Profoundly that I should have been smarter. I should have been stronger. I feel like an idiot for even being here. And just the level of contempt and detachment they have for themselves. And so they're fused with this idea that they're supposed to be living this really linear life where they have a goal and they're supposed to be smart enough and strong enough to be working on that. So when that's happening, they feel okay, but when they're not, they really have no idea about where to go or what to do with that. And so that's usually where I meet people, is when they fall out of balance like that. But the great part is if guys have got the strength to step into the unknown and to do that in the company of another human being,
Wow.
that then they can start to learn the skills, because they can't learn to do that by themselves. You can't learn to trust and to be close with other people by yourself. That just doesn't work. You need some practice. But if they can, the rate at which their lives start to open up is just, extraordinary.
So I'm sure that there's a bunch of people listening in now and in the future that feel exactly what you just said. So is there something that you could just mention to them or offer to them just right now if they are feeling that way? Something they could, like the next step, if you like.
I think just having a rough framework. So, it's incredibly basic, but I just say that if you bought a car, would you expect that you'd have to service it at some stage during the lifetime of the car? That it's going to need some level of care. And that doesn't mean that it's a faulty car, but it is going to
Well,
need some
I'm
level
going
of
to
care.
interject there. That is so amazing.
Yeah. I
Just
mean,
that.
what would you
Just because
expect?
you,
If you drove a car for 10, 15 years, how could you expect that it could possibly survive without some level of
and
care
there's
from someone
nothing
else?
wrong with the car. If you have to
There's
service it,
nothing
there's
wrong with
nothing
the
wrong.
car.
That's actually part of looking after it.
It may be a really elite high performance car. The other
And
one that
still
you,
requires it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. The other sort of analogy that you use is if there was a bodybuilder, just this superhuman strength, but he's caught in an avalanche, he's caught in a tsunami. It doesn't mean that he was weak. That was just the circumstances. So if you find yourself under an avalanche, which is going to happen, the irony is that there's a great deal of uncertainty when you're on your knees about trust in yourself and that process if you're not familiar with it. So just being aware that at some stage, it's not a weakness, but just the nature of life is going to keep changing. And it's going to put you in a predicament where you're not able to draw upon your old strengths. And that's going to be a coming of age in terms of your flexibility, in terms of reaching out, having some care. And then you can move on and take your place in the tribe with a greater degree of wisdom. And that's something that we might come and talk a bit more about later.
Yeah. That's the crucial thing is you're not wrong. You never were. And what if you don't have to do this all by yourself? And the other thing too is just to let anyone listening out there, whether you're male or female, that if you're going through a hard time, you're not alone. A lot of people, come in, as Todd was saying, exactly with that, just feeling so wrong and out of sorts. What do you love about being a man?
Wow. I guess I had a conversation with my sister on the weekend, and she was just talking about all the things she had to be considerate of in terms of safety. And, it was the first time I think I ever really, noticed that I'd taken for granted a lot of the freedoms that I had in that regard. I think with my friends in terms of activity and perhaps some of the directness that we experience as men can be fun. I guess adventures as well can be a great part as well.
Absolutely. And what are the challenges about being a man?
Wow. I guess that you can't succeed all the time. And I give these messages, I help men, but it makes very little difference. I have the same, and the same disappointment when I arrive in those positions. So that's certainly a struggle. And I think it's such a strong, such a powerful cultural thing that the marketing that we receive is that we're supposed to be smart enough and strong enough, and if we haven't, then there's something wrong. Where maybe we should go out and buy another product or do another course or do whatever we need to do to be strong enough or smart enough. But yeah, that's certainly the greatest challenge, I think, is any of that personal criticism.
What is it like for guys with guys as far as supporting each other and having each other's backs? Is that something, do men talk to men about this, or is this more keep it to yourself?
I think there's some really great differences between groups of men, and one of the ironies is that age doesn't seem to make that much difference. While time presents those challenges and opportunities, it doesn't necessarily provide that support. And so it's really a question of how much, how normal is that in the culture of men that you associate with. So for any guys who've struggled, we usually break it down. It's like, okay, well, to start with, how could you share just a little? And how could you be really discerning about, who would be most likely to have the maturity to do that with you and back you up? And then, in the situations where, that's not possible, then, we start to work on, well, how could you forge those connections? It's a supportive process that takes a bit of time and a bit of practice.
One of the things that was huge for me was when I realized you guys actually do have it hard. It always, I bought the lies out there that, all men are strong and we're the weak ones. And it was actually really beautiful to find out, wow, okay, they go through the same stuff. They worry about what they look like and if someone likes them or not, or if a project fails, they take it to heart or whatever it is.
Imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're human too. Yeah. Who would have known?
I know. And it is that marketing. It is that it's been this secret, and one of the things that I've really loved is that the secret's now being exposed, and that vulnerability has changed my world. When a guy says, I loved it when I contacted you and said, hey, would you like to come on? And you said, I'd love to, but you just, I'm not an expert. And I was like, I really loved that.
Sure.
It's like we do get things wrong, and we're not, the be all and end all, but at the same time, within us, there's a magic. Within us, there's a uniqueness.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Just before you got in contact with me, actually, I was speaking with a really good friend, and she loves the men in her life, absolutely. But she just stopped me at one point. She said, "Look, I've been thinking. I've got to ask you this question: why are men such idiots? Why are they so aggressive? Why are they so fearful? Why are they responsible for domestic violence? Why are they so black and white?" And she was really, asking in a really genuine sense, and it's a really good question. And we see that men are responsible for more violent crime. We see that, one of the great tragedies in Australia is we have over 3,000 people killing themselves every year. That's more than died on September 11th.
Yeah,
I mean that's absolutely staggering. Over that 3,000, there's more than 2,300 of those are guys. So there is a disproportionate proportion of men who are killing others and killing themselves. And that's just the more extreme end. But we've got to ask, well, what are these guys, if they're in flight or fight and so reactive at that animal level, what is it that they're afraid of? And fundamentally, it's that fear around their worth. And so in a masculine culture, we value those things that we were talking about in terms of protection, achievement, financial success, and setting and achieving those goals. But what we don't value is the feminine. And I guess poetically, the feminine represented in terms of possibility and not knowing. And so the reality is that in life, men are not prepared socially, culturally, or in our own psychology for the fact that we don't know. We're not in control. In fact, a lot of the ways to gain clarity is to spend some time in that state of not knowing. And older cultures, of course, would have these sort of experiences where, whether it's on walkabout or with the tribe, there would be rituals where they would sit into those processes. But we don't really have anything to frame the fact that not knowing may in fact be a virtue or a potential strength. And yeah, that's something that we do in therapy, but certainly something that we need to teach guys as well, is that you are going to be in these positions. You're going to hit that tsunami. You're going to hit that avalanche. Doesn't mean that you're weak, but you need to be creative about where do you go so that you can sit into that uncertainty, allow your eyes and your heart to adjust so that you can take your place with others.
The one thing I've realised just with the beautiful men in my world is a lot of them didn't realise that just being them was enough and more than enough, and that not knowing is actually, and that vulnerability is the most delicious thing to a woman. And if you want to talk about what turns us on, it's about being them. It's not about what project you did. That's just like icing for us. That's cool. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's nice. But what for us, it's just you being you. And, and the thing that I really would love to get across from a woman's point of view is, and it's the same for men and women, is if we do drop into that, if we're actually willing to be that space of vulnerability and be in that not knowing, that does indeed open up possibilities for the world to come and greet you and for you to be the contribution probably that you didn't even know was there for you to contribute, rather than the thinking stinking that we tend to do. So with the men listening...
Just to laugh, I was hearing you say that, something that was, just so valuable was seeing that process of guys in their presence. Just allowing them to share that humanity. I see that in couples counselling all the time, that he's been holding back, not wanting to be a burden or not wanting to worry her or not wanting to weaken her. And then when he starts to share more, starts to collapse, his partner is just on the edge of her seat. Yeah. She is just literally reaching out and craving this, the truth of this human connection that now he's starting to share, So
who would have thought, a man just being, saying, "Hi, here's me without anything, just me." Yeah, and it's delicious.
Add value, and if that is his greatest fear, that he doesn't have worth without those achievements, then he will always avoid stepping into those spaces. But the tragedy is that everyone misses out as a result. So
I was doing a class a few months ago, and in the break I was in a lineup just to get some food, and there was a gentleman there with his probably around, 14, 15-year-old son, and he was just hugging him, but the energy, how he hugged him and the receiving of the hug, it changed my world. And so I'm one of those crazy people that like to leave anonymous messages or, things on windscreens and stuff like that. But every now and then you can't do that. So I actually wrote on the back of my food receipt, just acknowledging the hug and how it totally changed mine. I was with two girlfriends, our world. Yeah. And so the next day I was in the same area, and this guy just walks up to me in tears. And he said, I didn't put value on that. I was just hugging my son. I didn't think anything of it. And, that speaks to that energy of what we were just talking about before, like, oh, I'm just hugging my son. Well, what if you're not? What if you're actually contributing to him being great?
Mm.
Anyway, so he shared the note with his son, and his son then actually said, Dad, I really love it. I love that you pay me attention. Then, of course, they went home and his wife was there. And she said, do you know how amazing I feel when we're out in public and what you're like with my son and what we do? And it just this one thing, so a lot of people, like, as you're talking about, thinking about their projects or what makes someone successful, that to me is a world changer. Just being present with your son or daughter or husband or wife or whatever it is.
It's such a good story.
So what else would you like to share? What do you know that no one else knows?
I was just going to continue on from your story. I really liked that you said that there were tears in his eyes as he tried to explain what that meant to him. This is the other thing is that guys do feel that sense of being isolated and alone in not being enough, in that they're not celebrated, in that they fear that they're supposed to be more and more and more, and that is the average. And so often they don't know what to do if they're actually praised for being who they are. And that if they're in a strong enough position to receive that, tears often do come because they've been holding on to the grief of never having received any validation for their worth whatsoever their whole damn lives.
Wow. So right now, guys listening in, and girls, everyone, what if you being you is the greatness? And we're validating you right now. We're saying that you matter, and we're so grateful for you. If you're one of those people that are conscious in relationships, I'm so grateful. That just reminded me of something else that you said around if they're willing to receive that. Because, how often when someone says, oh, you look amazing, or that dress is incredible, or, oh, wow, I love that shirt, we go, oh, this, oh, no, that, and we discount it or we slough it off. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially with, relationships, is one of the most unkind things we can be for each other is not receiving. So when, someone does say something beautiful and wonderful, I remember my son, he's 18 now, but he was 5 at the time, and there was some roadworks and it was a super hot day. When I dropped him to school in the morning, we commented how, wow, these guys are standing out in the heat for so long. And then when I went to pick him up, it just so happened it was the same lady standing there, and we were at the front of the queue. And anyway, my son said to me, he said, oh, Mum, I would like to thank the lady for keeping us safe. And I said, oh, that'll be beautiful. So he wound his window down. He said, excuse me, lady. And of course, this lady walks a couple of steps up to the car, and I could see on her face, she's probably thinking, am I going to get yelled at? Am I going to, what is this? And he said, I just wanted to say thank you for standing out in the sun all day and keeping us safe. Anyway, she just started to cry. And I've never seen my son Jay wind up a window so fast in his life. He was terrified. And he turned to me and he said, what did I do, Mum? Because he thought it was something really terrible and wrong. He made this woman cry. And I said, honey, she was probably expecting some abuse. Maybe they get abused a lot. I don't know. I said, but really, you touched her. You actually acknowledged her for standing there. It's not easy every day. And he said to me, oh, I don't think I want to do that ever again. And that was a turning point for me. I was like, wow, how often do we shut ourselves down when we get the tears or we get a reaction where we think, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Can you speak about that?
Yeah, very, very common fear. Big part of, pop psychology, like Men from Mars, Men from Venus, that sort of training, that it's actually a tremendous service, that, we're not actually looking to solve problems, but to be with one another, and that when emotion comes up and we don't know what to do, that the strength is actually, being in each other's company, knowing where the other one is. That's just such a central part of life from birth, that sense of touch that comes between a mother and an infant. And then up to more subtle levels in meditation, that's what we're doing, is that we're actually between phenomena and paying attention. We've got that effectively a dialogue of being there. And that's such a, enormously important thing, both for men and women. Of course, when under pressure, we go back to, what we think we're supposed to have done. So for men, it's like, oh, well, how am I going to solve this? For women, they'll often hold themselves back, that I don't want to be too much, or I don't want to be too needy. But the irony is that, usually that's where the rejuvenating power and clarity often come from. And at the end of the day, what else matters other than that connection? That's what we're all fighting and trying to protect ourselves to achieve.
So if there's a guy out there who's not got a lot of validation going on in his universe, he's feeling like a complete failure into wrongness, what can he do in that moment?
I guess start experimenting. I liken it to surfing. You sort of get into some small waves first. So if there is an area of life that's working or that used to work, go with what's easy. Take that low-hanging fruit. So if that means getting back into an activity that you used to enjoy, whether it's martial arts or surfing or getting in the gym or whatever, that go with what's going to strengthen him to start with. But then to start reaching out a little bit further, if he's experiencing depression and anxiety, which usually happens when we're not getting our needs met, then lucky to be living in Australia, he can go and see his doctor, get a referral to someone who can help him define, put words to what he needs, and then he can go out and sort of ask for that a little bit more directly.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, it's what can they choose to bring more fun into their life, especially if they're not feeling fun, if it's not a good time for them, but even something as simple as, a comedy thing on YouTube, or getting out of nature, having a bubble bath. Well, that's a girl thing, maybe, I don't know, but some guys might like bubble bath.
I mean, if you look at the chakras, we're going from safety to fun to self-expression. And you're so right. If we've got some basic safety, then having some fun, it's such a creative, spontaneous place that loosens things up, and from there we can start expressing ourselves more clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Todd, where can people find you?
I work from Circle Wellness in Perigium. I'm not sure if I can find my website, but it's just Todd Zemek with a Z. There's not so many psychologists in the Sunshine Coast, so that's probably an easy way to find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that.